4, or the 4th round of the last event, was a huge result for him. And we watched all of France kind of live and die with the results of Mickey Picon through the last event as well. You know, just was really critical, and of course the results get more and more critical as we get down to the rest of the season. Jake Patterson putting on a good result as well, making it all the way through the quarterfinals, moving from 36th to I believe 29th. So guys like that, all these events super important, of course, for the front runners, but as well for just about everyone who's trying to requalify through the CT, because I think there's only Victor Ribas and Travis Logie that have assured their requalification through the QS. So really important contest for everyone. Now let's just hope Huey brings it on with the swell.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, however anyone goes here at Mundaka, you know, if there's swell, there won't be any excuses given, you know.
No, never.
Every competitor's had, you know, 2/3 of a year to tune the contest strategy, to get the quiver set, to, I don't know, figure out their opponents and what the act is for this year and what their own form is, and maybe get rid of a few bugs. You know, I've always thought that here at Mundaka, although sometimes you don't always see the highest scoring heat of the year here, a lot of the time you see the best strategic performances from the surfers who are really dominating. They'll really figure the break out. They'll dial into the rhythm of the ocean, and they'll play their cards exactly right to win here. You really have to do that. Play your cards dead on the money.
Definitely tactically, and from a reading the ocean standpoint, you really need to be on your game here in Mundaka, because it is a fickle wave. When it works and it's perfect, it really is perfect. All you got to do is just take off and stand there, and you can pretty much get the tubes of your life. But in the meantime, on a day like today, for example, you know, good set of 3 or 4 waves comes in about once every 5-10 minutes. Plenty of rideable surf, but you know, some of the sections peel off down the line. Other ones are a little bit fat as the tide continues to grow. So definitely need to have your game face on, be concentrated, and really be in tune with the ocean, which is why we see guys like Kelly Slater and Andy Irons and past winners like Luke Egan that really perform and show the difference between the men and the boys here at this river mouth, one of the world's best lefts here in Mundaka, Spain.
Well, very much so, Dave. And right now in the water, the opening heat of the Billabong Pro Mundaka for 2006, in the red singlet, Tommy Whitaker from Sydney, Australia. In the yellow, Luke Stedman, also from Sydney, Australia. And in the blue, Pedro Henrique from Brazil. And they're waiting for their first rides, and it looks like there's a little bit of a set moving into the contest zone right now. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an early ride.
Well, lines are on their way, and head judge Perry Hatchett has been watching the and first ride up and riding is Luke Stedman. Is he going to make it out of this first section? Nope. Well, there we go. We were talking about having the ability to read the waves correctly here is very important, and Steady read that one well enough to get into that section, but not enough to come out of that.
That's
first
right.
Wave of this 2006 Billabong Pro Mundaka.
Yeah, we apologise to you, all the crew out there who've logged on to billabongpro.com or aspworldtour.com right now. The camera's not cooperating. They will be up, and we'll be showing you this beautiful lineup very shortly.
In the meantime, just pretend you're listening to your favorite radio station. This is the Billabong Pro Mundaka Talk Radio Morning Show with Nick Carroll and Dave Mailman, live from Heat 1, Round 1.
Right on! And here goes Pedro Henrique from Brazil. Pedro draws a bottom turn off the top, a beautiful, slightly aerial recovery from that, but the wave gets away from him. Very quick wave. It races off down the sandbar, and out wide, paddling Luke Stedman for his second ride. I think this one's going to shut down on him, Dave.
It definitely a little closeout section there. Yeah, no pinch. That's the thing here in Mundaka. There's beautiful barrels, but as the tide comes up, they do have a tendency to pinch shut on the end. And it's just going to be one of those days at Mundaka. I think we'll see some real gems roll through, but there's going to be a lot of ones that kind of look like beautiful diamonds and aren't quite the real thing.
Yeah, you bet. Well, you know, Dave, Mundaka, it for the crew who haven't surfed it yet, I know there's thousands of us who haven't yet. It does have its particular tendencies and its little special markings and so on. One of the big things about Mundaka is that the river, and you know, the whole thing's formed by the river. The river, the Guernica River, running right down and throwing out a lot of sand and silt, and it lines this sandbar up and sets it and holds it in place. There is a little drawback to that, though. There's a fair bit of fresh water circulating through the lineup a lot of the time, and this can mean that unless you're really on your game, that the board you'd normally be using might end up feeling a little bit thin or narrow because fresh water is not as buoyant as salt water, and so you'll feel a slight sinkage. And if you're not on your game with your paddling, then it's going to wear you out after a little while. That's a big thing here at Mundaka.
Especially in these early heats in round one, the 3-man heats where no jet ski assist is allowed. So quite a bit more paddling for the guys in these early round heats. And between the fresh water coming out and mixing with the salt water, creating little problems with buoyancy. Also brings the temperature of the water down a little bit. A lot of the guys were still in shorts and spring suits up in France. It looks like everyone's got their 3-2 fulls on this morning as well. So back to the cold water before heading off to Brazil and Hawaii at the end of the year, where they can whack the trunks back on for one last time.
You know it. Mundaka is definitely a rubbery universe.
Oh, yes.
But along with all that, Mundaka itself, the wave itself, very fast, but it's got a really pure line in it, Dave. There's a really pure line, especially quite up high. When the tide's a little higher, it's up high. When the tide drops down, it's a little bit lower. But the line in the wave is really pure in it, and you can make waves that you might have considered to be impossible.
Oh, for sure. You guys pull into sections here, and just, it looks like it'd be a closeout at any other wave in the world. But the sandbar is absolutely flawless. So if you do have the speed and you read the wave right, once again, as you said, Nick, positioning is absolutely critical here in Mundaka. But if you have the correct positioning, you can really get the waves and the tubes of your life here. Sections rifle off, but with a good board under your feet, nothing is impossible here in Mundaka.
Yeah, you bet. And well, if you're just logging on to aspworldtour.com or billabongpro.com, you're here with us at the Billabong Pro Mundaka opening day. A beautiful day, a fresh little west-northwest groundswell coming in, sets every 5 or 8 minutes or so. First seat in the water right now, Tom Whitaker, Luke Stedman, Pedro Henrique.
And for the moment, Mr. Whitaker playing the waiting game. Luke Stedman has 2 waves under his belt, but hopefully for Luke, there'll be throwaways at the end of heat, a 1.67 and a 1.0. And Pedro Henrique, 0.83 and a 2.5. So really not a whole lot of action in the lineup for the moment, but a beautiful sunrise. Some really psychedelic-looking clouds up there overlooking the entrance to the Guernica River here in Mundaka at the Billabong Pro 2006. Once again, one of the most important contests on tour, one of the best waves on tour as well. After the lefts of the Pacific Ocean and Fiji and Tahiti, probably the most perfect left on tour outside of the Pacific Ocean. Of course, Pipeline to finish off the season, another brilliant left-hander.
Pipes everything but that.
Yeah, exactly.
Pipes the whole lot.
Take every best things from every surf spot in the world, wrap them all together, you got Pipeline. But
very much. But out here at Mundaka, owns its own special test, and certainly this time of the season, it's going to be a real test for every surfer in this event to wrap their heads around a different type of wave coming in after the small, clean lines of trestles and the wedged-up beach breaks of Hossegor, that warm water French feeling. Now we're into cool water, long lines, an adaptation to a slightly different style of surfing, and also a new level of stress for many of the surfers in this event.
Yeah, definitely. As we're the ratings race for the title of 2006 Foster's ASP Men's World Tour. Definitely, as we come down into the 9th of the 11 events on tour this year, this is a key event result-wise for everyone. And as Nick was saying, we're back into colder water, long lined-up walls, kind of like a reverse Jeffreys Bay. So after all the regular footers had their shot at their own personal paradise in Jeffreys Bay at the Billabong Pro South Africa, Billabong brings them back to a similar style of wave, long, perfect wrapping Rivermouth Point here in the northeast of Spain, in the Basque Country, for the Billabong Pro Mundaka. I bet the boys are pretty happy with Billabong sponsoring these great events and great point breaks.
God, David, it's always boggled my mind that the lifestyle of the professional surfer,
It really is dream tour now, because when you were back on tour and following your brother around as well, saw a lot of parking lots and really small beach breaks, but
they're all gone now. The parking lots are gone now.
Thank
It's open water, clean waves. Here goes Tommy Whitaker for his first ride. Tom from Bronte in Sydney goes up, hits the top. Another top turn. I would reckon this will be the highest scoring wave of the heat so far.
Yeah.
Tom gets unstuck by a long lined up flat walled lip. And he's going to paddle back out in the lineup, and another wave approaching there, Dave.
This looks like the little Brazilian Pedro Henrique, who put a little spanner in the works of Taj Burrow's title run. Starting off here, the first roundhouse cutback. They had absolutely a barn burner of a heat up in France. Unfortunately, for the two of them, is a little bit onshore, causing the conditions to be not that great. And here, Pedro finding probably one of the best waves he's surfed in the last few weeks. Absolutely just whacking this one all the way to the end and throwing a little front side air 180 there to finish, coming unstuck. But, well, we said that we thought Tom Whitaker's wave was the best of the heat, and it was up until that last one of Pedro Henrique, who was already out in front with a 0.83 and a 2.5. Now will be extending his lead a bit. And another one of the surfers ranked in the low 40s before France, and has now moved his way up into the mid-30s. So he's looking for one more good result here to hopefully requalify himself for the 2007 World Tour.
Yeah, you bet. Well, Dave, it's early days yet. So the
Yeah,
first week of the
definitely.
grand contest, but you can already sort of feel something there with Pedro is that that's given him confidence, that result from last week, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him repeat or go even a little further here at Mundaka. He's got the light-footed, accurate surfing style of the small, goofy-foot Brazilian surfer, and in very much in the tradition of his countryman Victor Ribas. Really fast and slick and quite precise.
Exactly. Super technical surfer.
Yep.
Definitely, he's the pint-sized kid out there. So he's the smallest kid on tour. He's even smaller than Adriano de Souza. So he actually makes the waves look bigger than they are as well. But definitely not a power surfer, but very technical. He's reads the wave really well and slides along the thing like he's riding a little bar of soap through the bathtub.
Oh yeah.
And we're still waiting for scores from that last exchange. The judges deciding which they like better, Tom Witt's backside power gouges or Pedro's long floaty style. But Pedro putting together about 10 maneuvers on that last one. As you can see, another set start of rolling through here. And with the incoming tide, once again, the waves will be getting fatter as the morning progresses along, but still plenty of perfect lines there. And
man,
it looks like, steady maybe.
Look at this wave coming straight onto the sandbar. Tide, as you can see, a little bit high, but it's plenty low enough for this wave. Luke going up high. Notice him getting a little bit caught there, Dave. I thought that might have been that whole freshwater thing we were talking about.
Yeah.
He goes up and smacks it off the top, down the line. Luke, a big, tall, gangly surfer who really tends to work up momentum as he goes along the wave, and he finishes nicely there. And Pedro Henrique coming right back with a little inside wave of his own.
Hitting the lip to start, and another off the lip there, and one last re-entry. There's no way he's going to make it around that section. So another good exchange. Luke Stedman getting a couple off the lips and a nice re-entry in there at the end. Started off the season pretty well, Luke, with, I believe, an equal third down in, was it Bells, I believe?
Yes, indeed. Luke had an extremely impressive first half of the year this year. He really seemed to find his feet after a couple of years of kind of battling in and out of the top 45. And once he did find his feet, he also seemed to find a bit of a gap. And this is something you notice with any surfer of good ability and a lot of heart, which Luke has. He's got a lot of heart, a lot of moxie, you might say. and every now and then, if there's a dominant surfer up top doing really well like Kelly was early this year, and then there's a couple of seated guys who are on and off, who are coming on for one contest and then just going woohoo out the back door, like say Andy's been a bit this year. He's been a winner and then he's come 33rd, and you're going, how did he do that?
How did that happen? Exactly.
A guy like Luke, with his moxie and his savvy and what he's learnt in a couple of years, he'll go right up the middle and record fifths and thirds, and get himself into a surprisingly high spot on the rankings, and gain in confidence as a result. And I think that's very much the case with Luke this year. He's just been able to run his own race and not have to worry about all these other gun guys smashing him down at every turn.
Kind of like Taylor Knox as well, actually.
Oh, very much.
Two of them. Taylor's had a great run this year, and both, surprised people out of the gates, but then it was like, oh, well, hey, they're here.
They're here.
And the judges kind of say the same thing because, I think the judges, even though they are impartial and unbiased, do kind of get on a little bit of a roll with certain surfers that are on a roll too, and Luke just showed him from the beginning of the year that this year it was time to reckon with him. And here's another one who the judges have in their sights, Tom Whitaker.
Well, God, man, sometimes it's really hard to talk about guys while they're surfing, isn't it? Because it's like the old surfing fable of like once you start going, geez, he's ripping today, isn't he?
That he's going to fall apart.
But I was just thinking there, right there with Tommy Whitaker, I reckon one of the most underrated surfers in the world tour as far as pure,
definitely
pure
ability,
energy, talent.
Ability compared to visibility, I guess. Don't see a whole lot of him in the magazines, but I guarantee you, of all the kind of key players out there, when they come up against lower-ranked guys and the kind of unknown outsiders, Tom Whitaker is definitely one that Andy and company do not want to come up against.
Oh, no, he's taken down plenty of the top-ranked surfers. Tom comes from a very athletic family, actually.
Yes, he does. His brother's a pro, is it rugby player or
rugby
Aussie
player? Yeah. He's very highly thought of pro rugby player, and Tom's got a little bit of that in him too. I think he's got that, like, I'm an athlete. I'm not.
Along with that Aussie fighting spirit.
Yeah. And so sometimes when he brings that to the table, especially in excellent waves like Mundaka, the real primo waves on the tour, that's when this guy's at his most dangerous.
Really steps up. Well, as we saw at the Boost Mobile and Trestles, had a great run. Surfed really well in France. Another thing that it's really hard every year on tour, the level goes up and up and up. And this year, you look at guys like, Roy Powers, who's an amazing surfer, beautiful style, brilliant wave knowledge, comes out of Hawaii. He's grown up watching the Irons Brothers, and everyone's, claiming him, and he's equal 40th right now.
It's rad, isn't it? I mean, and Roy, if he can get back into the game, he could turn into Luke Stedman here just like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately for Roy, another one of the CT surfers that decided not to go full out on the QS in his rookie year on tour as well, and might unfortunately find himself back on the QS again next year.
He may well pay the penalty.
Yeah, but these things do happen. Same thing with Davey Weir and France's Mickey Peakon, the three of them, three rookies. and all at equal 40th right now on the CT rankings.
Jeez.
With the talent to be rated much, much higher, but that's just the luck of the draw and the tough life on the Dream Tour sometimes. It's not a dream, but a nightmare.
Yeah, it can go a bit ugly at times, and it must have hurt them. They worked for a long time to get themselves into that situation of being one of the elite pro surfers in the whole world. Boom, before you know it, they're showing up at events and they're getting their hands shaken by everyone, and they're putting on contest jerseys with Occy and Andy and everyone, and then boom, within months, it's like boom, it's all come apart. It's like, what? That wasn't cool.
Not at all.
No. Well,
and of course, like everyone else, I don't know what it is, but for the last 2 years, all this, none of the CT guys have even wanted to acknowledge the fact that the WQS Tour was there kind of until very late in the season, and it seems like a lot of them have had a hard time to get the QS engine restarted. Moving from the Dream Tour of the two-man heats back into the four-man heats situation on the QS doesn't seem to agree with a lot of them, and they all want to say, well, I'm good enough to qualify through the top 28. Unfortunately, there's 15 guys every year that just aren't.
Well, this is the trickery of it, Dave, is that you think you've done all the hard yards, qualifying through the World Qualifying Series and all that, and then you think, all right, I'm on the holiday. On a holiday now. Boom, and you just go out, and then you suddenly realise it's worse than it ever was. You know what? You thought you were working hard in the WQS. It's worse than it ever was once you get into the
10 times harder.
Oh, God, Dream Tour. Yeah, it is, as you say, a bit of a nightmare tour. Well, Dave, look at the scoreboard in round one, heat one here of the Billabong Pro for Mundaka. Let's have a look at the scores.
Our lowest seed, currently 39th in the rankings, Pedro Henrique, is out in front of this one, a 6.33 on his fourth wave. That last one we saw, making his way all the way through the inside, and a 5.17 to go with that puts him in the lead. Second yellow, Luke Stedman, who is our 26th seed into this event, is in second place with a 7.67 and a 1.67. So a good wave score to go with a poor one, and two fairly average scores for our surfer in the red singlet. And third, Tom Whitaker, a 4.0 and a 3.67. He needs a 7.5 to move into first. Steady looking for a 3.83. Both surfers, of course, capable of putting those kind of scores on the board, especially for Luke. A 3.83 should be a formality, but you never know. And, of course, here in Mundaka, it really is only the set waves that count for anything. So right now, kind of Pedro Henrique turning things on their heads and keeping his momentum up from his great finish at the Pro France last week. Out in front, looking for his first direct qualification to round 3 with 11 minutes and 25 seconds remaining. Kind of, well, there you go, turning things on his head. Hey, Nick?
Certainly turning things on his head. And coming up next heat, of course, heat number 2 of this event. Another three-man heat, Timmy Reyes from the USA, all the way from Huntington Beach. Victor Rivas from Brazil.
And David Weir.
Dave Weir. And we see it again. Two
South African rookie we were talking about.
Yep. Two power surfing regular foots and a technical goofy from Brazil.
Yeah.
It's happening again.
We'll see how the technical goofy does. He made it all the way through to the quarterfinals at the Boost Mobile at Trestles, and then surfed his way up to round 4 in France, and is currently one of the only 2 surfers on tour to be in a position to qualify himself through the WCT and the WQS. Victor, I believe, sitting at 7th or 8th position he's in 9th position on the WQS and 28th position on the WCT right now. So Victor coming up against South Africa's rookie David Weir, super talented surfer, but just having a bit of a shocker in his first year on tour. And Tim Reyes in his second year on tour out of Huntington Beach, California. Loves the right-hand point breaks. Haven't seen him on too many lefts this year. And of course, he's competed well, but he's really put in his best performances on the right.
Yeah.
And another kid who had a really hard time requalifying last year and just managed to squeak through at the end of the season and I believe, is sitting. Yes, he is in the top 10. He's in, I think, 9th position on the world rankings right now.
He is actually, and interesting fact, just to give you a feel for how much potential pressure there is lurking around this event. Timmy Rose actually has a shot at the World Championship at the moment. If he can get home one place ahead of Kelly at this contest and then go ahead and win the last 2 events, and if Kelly falls apart in both of them, Timmy has a shot. He mathematically has a shot at a world title, and that shows you how far that guy's come in the last 18 months. He's always been a really competitive kid, Tim. It's funny that he's been doing so well front side this year, because traditionally I think
he's been better on his backhand.
Better on his backhand, and I think you'll see that kind of flower over the next couple of years as he gets these heavy lefts like Chopu and Mundaka dialed in and figures out
feeling more comfortable.
Yeah, you bet, because he is a surfer of the classic modern tradition of Andy Irons and Parker and Fanning and so on. Very limber, loose, fluid surfer who can pull stuff out of the hat at any moment. Super fast,
Plenty of power. And we saw it in Mexico, an unbelievable tube rider. And he'd come out of one of those La Jolla barrels and just throw a huge forehand hack, and then finish off a lot of them with really nice straight airs on the end of the waves down there. So really a good mix. And as you said, he's kind of one of the younger kids on tour, but he's really looked at what everyone else does, and you can see Kelly Slater and Andy Irons and Joel Parkinson in his style.
You can, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're starting to look at him and just think, hang on, he's
in the top 10 on his second year on tour.
I don't like this.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, especially Kelly. I mean, he finished 3rd in Mexico. Of course, Taylor Knox took out Kelly down in Mexico, but Tim Reyes was one of the people all the way through the event that was being claimed as one of the favorites and a potential finalist, and just came a whisker away from actually making that final. Took our 3-time world champ Andy Irons to knock him out. So really brilliant surfer for right now. Well, we'll see what he's got coming up a little bit later on. Still the same situation out in the lineup here in heat number 1. Once again, in 3rd position, Sydney Sider, Tom Whitaker looking for a 7.5 to move into 1st. 2nd, yellow. Luke Stedman looking for a 3.83 to go to 1st and into a direct qualification for round 3. And in 1st position, it is our pint-sized Brazilian, Pedro Henrique, with 2 good wave score. Actually, an average wave score and a good wave score. 6.33 and a 5.17, leads by 2.16. On the 2-wave overall total with 6.5 minutes remaining. Nick, we're getting down to the business end of this one.
Very much.
Looks like we got some lines rolling through here.
Very much so. There's a couple little waves creeping toward the contest zone. I don't know if the tide's already gone a little too high for this particular wave, but it does look like it's going to have a go at breaking. One surfer sitting very deep there. I think it's Pedro.
Yeah, Pedro's the deepest.
He is the deepest. He's paddling for it. He's definitely making a move on it.
He's got it, yeah.
And there we go. And Pedro racing off down the line. The little Brazilian launching himself off the lip. It does look like he's going to get around this section. Boom, up and down again. And geez, he was very patient there, wasn't he, Dave? He just waited for the wave to set itself up for him. Didn't rush anything, and he's getting a nice little ride down there into the bay.
And that's actually a good example of how perfect the sandbar can be here at Mundaka, because even with the high tide, that one, remember, Pedro Henrique stands about 4'6". Yeah. So a couple feet overhead there for Pedro, about head high for the rest of us. And but just working that thing beautifully. Plenty of speed off the peak, because it is a very powerful wave, even when it's a little bit fat on the higher tides. Threw it straight up into the lip twice, a nice floater in the middle there. And just read that one perfectly, because
he really did.
Made it through all the way to the end section. And tactically speaking as well, the bigger ones have been breaking a little bit wider. And Pedro just said, well, you know what? I'm going to sit all the way up at the top of the point here, just inside of Miyazi mates, and try and get a little in-betweener and hopefully get a good score and keep the other two off the only wave of that set at the same time. So technically and tactically speaking, that was a good move for Pedro Henrique. 5 minutes remaining. See what that last score was. Ooh, judges like that one.
Yeah, this one looks like it's going to help him out a little bit, Dave, and push Pedro a little bit further into the lead. Very smart tactics there from the young Brazilian surfer. He knew he had the whip hand if he could get the best wave to come through in the last few minutes, and he made his move to the inside, held onto it now. Up and riding, Luke Stedman. Luke is trying to get back into the game here with this ride. He does have the highest scoring wave of the heat so far, so he doesn't need a huge score. He only needs about a 4-point score. Good Lord. Look at that.
There's a right-hander coming at him.
There's a right-hander coming at him. Smacks the foam and comes back around. Luke doing it tough there on the inside.
No doubt. Scratching for every point possible. So Pedro Henrique's last wave was 6.67, which left Luke needing a 5.33 on that last one. Got a couple turns in. But I don't think that's going to be enough for him. The judges really want to see that speed and long turns or vertical turns down the line. That wave really fattened out on him.
Oh, didn't it just?
And he really had to hop. It's not often you see the Huntington hop here in Mundaka, but Luke had to apply some SoCal moves there to make his way down to that end section. That one's, well, we'll better his 1.67, but we'll still leave him needing a 5.33 to go to first. And now third place still, red Tom Whitaker needs a 9.0 on one of his next waves. And with only 3 minutes remaining, probably on his last wave to have any chance of moving through directly to round 3.
Yeah, well,
so we talked about how one good result can give a surfer momentum coming into the next one, and Pedro Henrique apparently taking down Taj Burrow really lit a fire under his fanny, and looking to go straight through to round 3 for the first time this year for him.
Yeah, you know what, Dave? A lot of surfers use this round number 1 as a kind of warm-up for the event to get their feet on the wax and figure out the lineup in a competitive situation. I think that would be a dangerous thing for anyone to do here at Mundaka. This first round win is going to prove to be very important.
Important for sure.
There's going to be this swell that's with us now. It might hang around for a day or so. Then we're likely to go into a bit of a solid wind swell pattern for a few days, and then another big solid ground swell and
to finish out the waiting period.
And you know that there's going to be heats held on days when it's shifty and it's a complex lineup, and luck will begin to play a part. And if you end up in round 2, right, just because you kind of slacked off in round 1, you end up in round 2, and then luck starts playing its a horrible part, then you'll be cursing.
Oh, for sure, especially if it's one of those new swell days where it's, like 8 to 10 foot and breaking, off out the back, off to the right, off to the left. You never know. Oh, and here we go.
Jeez, look at this. Well, Tom's just gone, I'm not done with this yet, and pulls in very deep on a beautiful tube ride.
Well, he needed a 9.0.
He needed a 9, and I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if the judges went for that. Out the back, Pedro Henrique, current heat leader, pumps, drives, gets up high, pulls into the tube. Is Pedro going to come through that very long, flat line tube? I don't think he's going to manage that one.
Not anymore. If he does, it's a 10.
and here goes old Luke Stedman out the back, driving down the line. Luke decides to go around this section up for a beautiful top turn.
Could have been a very good idea.
Oh, just as the sun comes out, what a gorgeous place. Would you be anywhere else but Mundaka right now, Dave?
No, this is it. This is true Mundaka conditions all coming together. Just a couple feet overhead on the sets. Perfect offshore winds. Sunny, and a brilliant wave for Luke Stedman.
Wow.
Didn't go for the tube on that one because he knew he only needed a 5.33, and if he fell off, he wouldn't get it. But there he gave himself every chance in the world, actually. Nice snaps, critical surfing in the pocket. Didn't get barreled, but definitely put together some good turns and good snaps off the top there. So Mr. Steady could surprise us at the end of that one.
Yeah, I think we'll see a change there.
And Tom Whitaker, there actually looks like Tommy might get it.
Score's coming down. There's only about 5 or 6 seconds left in this. So there won't be another wave ridden.
3, 2, 1, and that'll be it for this one. So all the suspense now is in the